Welcome. Today we're going to take a look at how we can resize images in Java using Swing. And we've got this great example right here. I've got Mimikyu on the left right here with a base image size of 800 by 800 and a blank section on the right so I can resize that image. And if I click my click to resize button, you can see right here that boom, I've got this nice resized image. It's 400 by 500. We can see it's a clearly scaled down image of that. It works really well. Let's go ahead and take a look at how we can make that code happen and how we can actually see and make further adjustments with this so we can learn how to do image resizing in Java and do some cool stuff for our projects. Let's go ahead and take a look. Let's take a look over here at the project itself. You can see I've got my project over here. I've got my image resize demo project, and I've got my controller package with the controller and the runner in it. I have my view package with the demo frame and the panel package, and I've got my cute.png, my original images. You can see right here it's 800 by 800 pixels in size, so I've got that ready to go. But all the work we're going to be doing is going to be happening inside our JPanel subclass. And so let's go ahead and take a look at that really quick and see how we can put that together. The first thing I want to go over is the actual imports we're working with. And so when we're working with the image library, we have a couple of imports we do so we can do the work of that project. As you can see right here, I've got a little comment on there in line 12 talking about this. I have import java.io.io exception in case I have any errors when I'm doing file reading, because that could happen. javax.imageio.imageio, which is the ImageIO reading tool that is part of the Swing library. It's a great tool, wonderful, love it. And then I have aw2.image capital I, and then aw2.image.BufferedImage, those two dates that we use to actually work with the image information inside the project. And then finally java.aw2.graphics2d, which is the drawing library we use for all of our graphics-based components we do inside our Java projects. So we'll go ahead and we'll collapse that out, get that out of the way. We've got our demo members we're working with right here. You can see I've got a couple J labels. That's where we actually put the images inside that. That's what we'll be working with. And everything gets initialized in the constructor. No big deal right there. We can see that we have the base label and the resize label are assigned right there. And we load image, setup panel, setup layout, and setup listeners for our helper methods to load that up. Let's go take a look at the loadImage method first. It's going to load that first image we saw when we first open up the project. And so I say my icon is a new image icon. I use the get class, get resource path, and I load the demo/view/images/cute.png, that image we just saw over there in our package explorer on the left, so we can see that what that file is. We're loading it directly into our image icon directly. I don't handle the error that could potentially happen for that because I already know the project's there, but if you're working with this in actual projects, you should not just leave that catch block unhandled. That's something you should actually work with. Then I set my base label.setIcon. I pass it that icon parameter I just initialized from that try block. And then I say that my base label set text is the base label.getText plus the icon's width and height that are in that information from that variable. So I have the information right there. I've loaded it in there. Otherwise, it's simply initialized to null inside that. In my setup layout, I just put everything on the screen. That's my constraints. So I don't have to worry about that at all right now. In my setup listeners, that's where the button calls the resize method, and we'll see how that works in just a minute. But the first thing we want to take a look at is the actual resize logic we're working with. When we want to resize the image, we can see we have a buffered image parameter called source image and an int max pixel size as our parameters we send to this method so we can get the information we need. The first thing we do is create a buffered image variable called resize image. I assign it null, and my last line is to return that. Just create a stub so I have immediately a compilable piece of code. That's where I start off with that. Then for the actual body, the logic, we create an image. I call it toolkit image, which is the source image where I do the get scaled instance. I pass it the max pixel size, which is that parameter I sent up above, which is the maximum width I want my image to be. But my second parameter, I assign -1, which matches the height of the image to the appropriate width that we specify. And because it's -1, it automatically calculates that for us. Great times, easy stuff. And finally, that third parameter, image.scale smooth, I want a nice clean transition of the image for that. So yeah, there's other helpers you can do for that. Scale smooth works really well though. Then I'm going to calculate the width and height for that new scaled image. So I do toolkit image.get width and get height, passing it this, the panel I'm talking about, who's the observer of that. I could also use null, but I use this for this demo. And then I have those two variables I can now use for calculating the appropriate width and height of the image I'll be using now for the rest of the project. My resize image gets reinitialized instead of null. I make a new buffered image, passing it the width and height parameters, and then the buffer image type ARGB because I'm using a PNG. So I'm going to draw with an alpha channel on that. If you're working with JPEGs, you should use the type int RGB, of course. Then I grab my graphics library, image graphics, by creating the graphics from that resized image. There's still no data inside it. And then I'm going to say image graphics.drawImage. I'm going to draw the toolkit image, the image I extracted from the source image, and I'm going to draw it in the top left corner with nobody watching. That's what that toolkit image 00 null parameter specifies. Finally, I'm going to dispose of my graphics library because I don't need to have that cutting up resources in my project anymore. And then I return the image that I just resized to whoever is going to use it. And in this case, it's going to be my resize method. So we'll squish that down and go back into resize now. The resize method, again, is what gets called from the button. And so this is all wrapped inside a try-catch block because, of course, I have to load the actual image itself. And so my buffered image buffered source is imageio.read, passing it the getClass.getResource, and that same path we have, demo view images cute.png. That same thing we saw over here in my images folder in my project. Again, I'm using the same image for both parts of this. I'm just scaling it down to fit. Then my buffer image resize is assigned a resize image. I call the method I just talked about, passing it buffered source and that new width of this, in this case 400. Then my set icon, passing that new image icon of that new image I just created, and I update the width and height variables on that to the string details that I append to the resize labels text. So I can have that information right there. And again, because it's a demo, I don't pass anything for my catch block. I just simply handle it and we move on. So let's go ahead and take a look at what we have. If I change this, instead of from 400, we'll change this down to 200, make a much smaller image. So I have a smaller image right now, click to resize, and now I have a much smaller image. It works just as well. It just squishes it down even smaller and adjusts the information from the size of the image that I just specified as a parameter appropriately as well. Go ahead and quit this one right here, and we'll try it for 1200, make it bigger than we started off with. Triple the size of the image, reload that image, and I triple image, and bam, now I've got this really big one. And even though I've tripled the size, there's not too much rasterization. This, you can see the pixelization's not too bad right there. We have a nice good a nice good scaling of that image. So it does a pretty good job of actually scaling that image to an upscaled version of that without losing too much detail for it. And so you can see exactly what happens when we do that. And so again, to make that happen, all I have to have is a resize image method where I can calculate this. And so my private buffered image, I grab that buffered image variable that I get from the source, I send it to that information, I resize the image, and just return the image to the appropriate location. And that happens between the resize image and resize methods that we have right there, so I can get that information. I hope this is a helpful way to actually work with images inside a Java project. Cheers, see you next time, and have a great day. Bye-bye.